In 2022, Red Bull sold 11.5 billion cans, which is a lot, but compare that to Coca-Cola, who sold 1.9 billion cans a day. That's basically nothing. Despite that, Red Bull owns 2 Formula 1 teams, 1 NASCAR team, 7 football clubs, and 2 ice hockey teams. They also sponsor over 1,000 athletes across 98 different sports. But it doesn't end there. They go on to organize entire events from esports to the jump from near the space in 2012, which alone costed nearly $15 million. They own the Red Bull media house, the record label. In short, there is very little that Red Bull doesn't do other than selling their cans. But how are they affording that? This becomes especially interesting when you take into account that 97% of the revenue comes from selling this one energy drink can. In the red-hot summer of 1982, the Austrian businessman Dietrich Mateschitz found himself battling the jet lag in Bangkok. Desperate for relief, he met this guy, the local manufacturer of tonic drinks. He offered Mateschitz this especially brewed tonic, the famous Krating Dan, which means red gar, a gar being a huge bison from Southeast Asia, so it's basically like calling it Red Bull. Mateschitz was instantly hooked to this miracle drink. It was like some drug, or Red Bull to be exact. But anyways, this genius manufacturer had crafted and perfected this Krating Dan drink to cater to blue-collar workers in Thailand. It would energize them, keep them going, give them wings, but it was affordable, making it a huge part of their routine. This genius manufacturer didn't just focus on these blue-collar workers, but also actively promoted the drink at these sport tournaments. In less than 2 years, people all over Thailand were drinking this throughout their day. This became essential to Thai culture and cemented this drink as a must-have at events. By that time, Mateschitz knew that this drink could become huge in Europe. He found that at that time, the largest taxpayer in Japan was an energy drink company, so there was definitely a huge potential for a global scale. He was, however, skeptical of name, packaging, and price, but everything else about the drink seemed like a golden opportunity. Mateschitz wanted to sell this drink in Europe, but when he tried doing so, nobody would want it. Anybody he would ask to invest their money would simply say that there's no market for such product. And here, Mateschitz said, then let's make one. So he approaches this manufacturer with the offer of taking the drink to Europe. He convinces him to put $500,000, and while this guy would focus on production, it would be Mateschitz's job to simply sell that drink. Mateschitz changes the name to Red Bull, the packaging to the sleek tin can, and the price to a premium which would be more than the competitors at that time. In 1987, he finally launches it in Austria. Since the drink was initially banned in Germany, Red Bull benefited from being seen as a rebellious brand. Lots of Germans would go to Austria to buy the banned energy drink, and Red Bull sold over 1 million cans in their first year. After starting in Austria, it would quickly spread across Europe, first to Slovakia and Hungary in 1992, then to Germany and UK in 94. 3 years later, when they would join the US market, Red Bull was already selling over 1 million units. Okay, so here comes the controversial part. Red Bull's ingredients. You know how I mentioned everything about the drink itself was perfect? And it was. In fact, the recipe for the original Red Bull to this day remains unchanged. However, in some markets, it's the caffeine content that varies. But let's talk about this other ingredient, taurine. I don't know how much of a thing it is now, but there was a study published online in 2016 that said Red Bull contains bull sperm. On a brief look at its content, people started targeting this taurine ingredient because this taurine word comes from the Latin word taurus, which means bull. However, as you dig deep, you would get to know that taurine is actually present in our human bodies. We have it in our retinas, brain, heart, and all across our blood. We get it from meat, fish, and a lot of other animal products. So yeah, Red Bull does not contain sperm. But the reason it's present in Red Bull at all is honestly because of tradition. People believe that taurine helped with athletic and mental performance, but there is no way to really prove that. Regardless, taurine was controversial enough for countries to entirely ban Red Bull because of this one ingredient. But there is no proof that it's harmful. I find it really ironic. There is no way to prove that it's useful, and really, there is no way to prove that it's even harmful. So in 2008, France, among other countries, removed the ban from Red Bull after 12 years of being unable to prove that it's harmful. But it has caffeine and sugar. In fact, a lot of sugar and a lot of caffeine. Caffeine more than a cup of coffee, and sugar equal to a can of Coke. And when you combine these two ingredients in that much quantity, Red Bull for sure can give you wings. Now, before diving into the genius of Red Bull marketing, we need to understand at that time, internet was still not a thing. Companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola would occasionally sponsor sporting events for promotion, but what Mateschitz had in mind was completely unheard of. In fact, he gave birth to this new species of corporation that focuses only on downstream activities. In short, Mateschitz had fully committed his entirety of resources to selling the drink. I mentioned initially, Mateschitz wasn't satisfied with the pricing of Krating Dang, as it entirely focused on blue-collar workers. Today, Red Bull's suggested retail price is $3.59, while their cost of production is just 9 cents per unit, almost 40 times the cost of production. And for this, Mateschitz had a clear plan. You see, he targeted parties, skiers, clubbers, and wealthy students. He also paid popular university students to host parties and give out as many Red Bulls. He made it really hard to imagine a student party without several packs of Red Bull. I'm sure you must have seen at least one of these Cooper cars with a huge Red Bull can at their back. He made sure that everyone saw it. But this was only the beginning of the huge Red Bull marketing machine. In 1989, Mateschitz partnered with Gerhard Berger, a race car driver. It was a small effort, a brand sponsoring a driver, not even a team. But after that, Red Bull would not stop. Red Bull has had their name in some way attached to everything from BMX to skiing, from mountain biking to famous Red Bull Formula One team. They purchased a failing Jaguar team for $1 in 2004, invested $400 million, and today that team is worth $2.6 billion. They even took a man to space and made him jump. Why? Just because they can. The jump costed them $50 million, but it made them $6 billion in estimated reporting of that jump. So it was really a smart move. And then they would focus on football. You see, Mateschitz was smart. He knew football is huge in Europe, especially in the birth country of Red Bull, Austria. Today, Red Bull has a football team in Austria, MLS, and the German Bundesliga. He knew it would be easier for someone to feel more immersed with the brand, drinking from a can that has the same logo as the one on the football team in front of him, or the performance car on F1 tracks. In 2022, Red Bull made $9.6 billion in revenue, with a third of that going into these marketing ventures, which are, in Red Bull's own words, not profitable yet. And so, for a company to have its sole dependency on one product is really not the best thing, especially with the growing awareness of health and nutrition. The focus on product that causes obesity, insomnia, or diabetes might backfire eventually. And so, investment on these core teams and media productions are therefore not only marketing activities, but really an attempt to diversify and create additional value chains next to the can business. One way Red Bull is able to do that is by creating a chain of sport teams. The best example is their football teams. A young player may begin his career in Red Bull Brazil, shines in Europe playing for Red Bull Salzburg in the Austrian league, and when he's ready for Champions League, he wears the Red Bull Leipzig jersey. Near his retirement, he might find himself playing for the New York Bulls in the MLS. Even that New York team, Red Bull bought the New York's MLS team in 2006 for $25 million, and today it's worth $525 million, almost 20-folding their investment. But even after all that, the main driver of all their revenue streams is still selling that one can. And the best way to maximize that is making sure that everyone hears about that. And that's one thing Red Bull does better than anyone else in the industry.